Top of the morning to you all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show, and I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for being here. Of course, it is a mostly cloudy 82 degrees right now in South Florida. I wish I could show you. It was a little sunny in the early morning hours, but thank you for being here. I see Matt O'Brien in the chat. I see Frankie Palaguacci, $9.99. To the Sal Greco Show says, thank you, brother, for always shining the light. We support you, and may God bless you always. And may God bless you too, Frankie. Rob2326 says, good morning from the free state of Texas. I wonder if it's 80 degrees over there to start off your morning. I see Hassan Mo. He says, con sofrito, the formerly known hangout of quite a few that are even still lingering in the NYPD executive branch. We have Joel Ramirez, $9.99 to the Sal Greco Show. Sends out the super sticker. 92 Charlie's here. Magic Mario's here. Terry Murnane is here. So shout out to you all. I hope everybody is well. Obviously, it was a wild last couple of days. There's so much going on. And I know the main event everybody wants to hear about is Richie Sticky Fingers Taylor, right? The deputy chief that suddenly was finally caught with his hands in a cookie jar. But if you were watching the show and listening to what we were saying for quite a while, you would have known that none of this is a surprise. But we'll get to that in a little bit because there's a couple other things we got to get to first. So first off, a couple of days ago, there was this whole thing with council member Chiase, and he filed this bogus CCRB against this cop. So let's play this, and we'll get into this.
It's 85 degrees right now in Fort Lauderdale. It's a scorcher, but we do have this little tidbit for everyone. So it looks like council member Chiase, who was arrested, if you remember, while he was protesting deed fraud, is now going to weaponize CCRB against the officer who did arrest him. CCRB is something that is needed. Why? Because there are cops that do commit misconduct. There are cops that do get involved in McGillas. But then there are people that are staffed as CCRB that are also anti-cop. And there are also supervisors that are not only anti-cop, but their biases are all over social media. So their bias is not thrown into that factor of what they are supposed to be listening to as far as complaints. So CCRB needs to be revamped and reviewed on its own. But Councilman Assay is saying, well, he was falsely arrested and there's excessive force. No, if you watch the video, there was no excessive force. And this is a abuse of the system. You're using the system against itself, and you're just trying to ostracize this officer. This isn't right, and this is where the system needs to be stopped being abused. This is an abuse of power. And hopefully CCRB, whoever is in charge, sees through this. Those officers did their job that day, and you were out there grandstanding when officers could have been answering 911 calls over something that wasn't even a deed fraud. So this is a disgrace, and hopefully they see through this charade.
So what happened here is, if you remember, there was a whole deed fraud protest that it wasn't deed fraud, and Chiase shows up with his merry band of boys and girls that he knows, all his little friends, and that pulled away cops from answering 911 calls. That pulled away cops that could have been answering real things and responding to things that are happening in the neighborhood for his little hissy fit. And then, of course, one of his buddies gets arrested that's acting up, right? That other person was being wild. And then he gets arrested. And he was blatantly told a few times, sir, you have to stop, sir. Okay. And then he goes, all right, now you're under arrest. And next thing you know, they handcuffed him. And after what we've seen over the last few weeks, this is as professional as it could be. And of course, he's on the ground, right? Because he tripped, and they handcuff him, and that's it. Now, what does he do? He's going to weaponize CCRB against this officer. And over the last couple of days, over the weekend, actually, there was an article from the New York Post from Tina Moore where they actually found some of these people in CCRB, whether they be civilians or supervisors, that are all over social media, and they have all kinds of biases, whether it's against police officers, against the police commissioner, the soccer mom, whether it's they don't like what's going on with the NYPD. You have to know that when you work for these agencies, your First Amendment is actually, it actually becomes less than what everyone else has a First Amendment, because whatever you say affects your position. So, yes, I think you should have CCOB, because we do have people like what happened with the Brooklyn McGilla, where there needs to be accountability. But you can't have those kind of people on the board, and they're the ones investigating these cases, because I think you know what's going to happen. It's absolutely biased. It's kind of like the NYPD's internal affairs, right? And we already know that the Department of Investigation with the NYPD Inspector General, they only have 10 people staffed. They used to have 40. So where is any kind of oversight anywhere? Maybe CCRB, if they can't revamp themselves and can't restaff themselves and retrain these people, and you can't keep these people around, by the way. Once somebody says something stupid online and they're a supervisor in CCRB, you have to be terminated. There's no, oh, I'll take it down, it's okay, because that's it. That's your bias, dude. Like you said that. That means that's how you think about everyone in the NYPD. You can't have someone like that overseeing this case, right? Because this case is blatantly, if anyone's objective, you'll say, I don't know where you're seeing any abuse of power or a FATO, which you call it, right? None of that. So on to give his take on this is someone who actually, I guess, ran into JSA in his childhood, the one and only Jack Stern. Jack, what do you think about this whole thing? I know you even said it's not even deed fraud to begin with.
No, it's not even close to deed fraud. And let me just point out to everyone in the audience, the actual owner of the house, because it was his daughter who was evicted, the actual owner of the house has not been seen publicly anywhere since 2023. And for context, the house was sold for $1.2 million in 2024. This house right here, 212 Jefferson Avenue. And by the way, I want to add a little bit of context here. So, Sal, if you own a house and someone forges your signature and says that you gave them the house, that's deed theft. But if you and your cousin jointly bought the house and you guys get in an argument about who the principal owner is and he decides he wants to come live there, that's just a family dispute. That's not deed theft. No one did anything wrong. That's not related to anything in the law. And you guys actually need to go to family court to solve that problem, because the police don't really have power of authority to do so, unless one of the individuals is being essentially evicted by the owner, which is what's happening here. The daughter of the original owner was evicted by people who rightfully bought the house, which is nothing close to deed theft. You want to argue that's immoral? Okay, but it's still not a crime, and that's why it takes such extreme objection with Chayose's publicity stunt. Also, Letitia James, remember her? She was someone who is in very close allegiance with Chayose. Her office did 3 separate thorough investigations on different components of the alleged deed theft, and they found no evidence to substantiate any of Jose's original claims. So this was all just one big political stunt, and I'm happy to kind of clarify everything that took place, because it really goes to prove it.
Yeah. Now, what do you feel about the Civilian Complaint Review Board? We found out in the last few days that they definitely have a bias. There's supervisors and investigators that have been posting. I don't think they understand that your First Amendment rights dwindle in these city agencies and government agencies when you work for them. And they're all over the internet with a bias. And now these are the people that are overseeing cases against police officers like the one that arrested Chiase. How is that case going to pair? How's that case going to eventually develop when one of these people might be overseeing it? Because I understand, and I listen, you do need CCRB, because like we saw a few weeks ago with the Brooklyn McGilla, you need accountability. We can't be having, the Wild Wild West out there either, but you can't have those people overseeing this. I mean, they're clearly biased in one direction. Some of them said some crazy stuff online. So
yeah,
what is your take on that? Because I think that's outrageous that these people are there. And these are the people that might be overseeing this case where there was no abuse of power. It really wasn't. It was a textbook arrest, if you could use the word textbook. So
no, Chiose was rightfully arrested. He was trespassing on private property. He was warned multiple times, if you don't leave right now, you're going to be arrested. And then when the police officers who said, I'm arresting you, he started screaming. So they needed to get him to the ground to detain him. He was making a ruckus. He was resisting arrest, and they did everything they had to do. They didn't use force. I just hope that this situation just isn't politicized because who was involved. If this involved any other normal civilian or human being on the street, you would hear nothing about CCRB complaints in all likelihood. But because it was Chiose, you're going to hear about him filing a complaint. He also made false allegations against the department. He said someone's knee was on his back when he was being arrested, which
that's not true.
Yeah, no one's knee was ever on his back, and he was dragged to the ground to be detained because he was resisting arrest in the first place. That's why his Miranda rights were never read to him, because he resisted arrest. You're not allowed to do that. That's illegal. And as it pertains to the CCRB people, I just hope that these cops are not hung out to dry as political pawns and made an example out of them for what's going to happen if you arrest a politician. Because we all know, Sal, that politicians, especially in New York City, get special treatment when they're processed for arrest. You look at what happened to Justin Timberlake in the Hamptons when he was arrested by Suffolk County Police Department. They said, we're going to treat you like any normal human being. You're going to be here for 7 or 8 hours. Same thing happened for Tiger Woods when he was arrested in Martin County, Florida. Yet Chiose is able to get on line one with Julie Menon, who then calls Commissioner Tisch, and they're going to go after the police officers who arrested Osei because of who he is. And if they don't face rightful justice, he's going to throw another temper tantrum. So it's unfair because the people in the situation are being evaluated based on job title, not based on what actually happened. It's Councilman Chiose. It's the sergeant and the police officer. It's not a rationally viewed situation by the public. And that's why I see vacation days being lost at some point when the investigation is done.
That's crazy.
I hope it does. I hope to everything on this earth it doesn't happen, because if anyone needs to learn a lesson, it's Chiose, because he was totally unruly and he picked the wrong thing to get arrested over too. This was not an example of deed theft. It was not even close to being deed theft. When he was confronted about it by both Chris Summerfold and Democracy Now!, when he went on that show, he said, well, I'm not going to get into the weeds of it. Like, dude, that's why you were there throwing a temper tantrum. You have to explain why it was deed theft. You have to address Letitia James' office's exoneration of everyone involved, and you have to explain what happened to the public. You can't just expect us to believe things at face value. We're not stupid.
That's not fair. I'm just saying I would keep a close eye on this, because I think that whole CCRB thing, especially what we found out thanks to Tina Moore, shows that there's a lot of biases there. And if any of these biased investigators that should be purged from CCRB, if there's no oversight over CCRB, then they should be purged from there completely, no matter what they say. This might end up being a railroad job. And this is what we're trying to avoid. You need to be fair to all parties. This, especially here on this platform, we're fair to all parties. And in order to be fair, you can't show bias. And clearly there's a bias in CCOB where you have investigated. We don't know who they are. They only picked out a few of them. And a supervisor that clearly has biases against the police department and its leadership. CCOB, you're running the organization. I mean, one of the people running it. I mean,
I would, if I was the police officers too, and it'll be interesting to see how the cops involved handle it, because they're kind of tiptoeing along a very delicate line here. Is it worth it to potentially hire lawyers to make sure that you have a fair due process? But they could eventually weaponize that and ultimately terminate you. The department can, if they get upset enough. So you hope that doesn't happen, and that you hope Osei's fraudulent claims don't impact the judicial process with the CCRB as well, because not only did he say that the cops put their knee on his neck, He also said that he was evaluated for a concussion and that he was feeling woozy, yet his head never touched the ground at any point in time until he was being arrested, and it was lightly put on the ground. So I don't want to hear any of that crap as well either. They're just going to try and make an example out of the cops who are wearing uniforms because they're wearing uniforms, and that's not fair. They did nothing wrong. They did their job. You had an unruly, if you look at the situation objectively, you had an unruly individual screaming outside of private property, unwilling to leave, and you had to go arrest him. Like, I don't understand what's wrong with that. And he was warned multiple times, like, you're going to be arrested if you don't leave. So
the beat goes on with that guy, you know. Anthony DiMaggio said here, friend of the show, bias should be expected. The nature of the work is attractive to people who dislike cops. That doesn't mean the bias should be tolerated. I agree. These people should be either A, purged, or B, there needs to be an outside body monitoring CCOB itself and saying, what are you doing posting these crazy things? And then they punish these people. I mean, I don't know how this works other than I think the best solution is to purge himself. And there has to be a strict policy. If you go online and start posting any crazy things, you're out of here. I mean, NYPD has something like that, even though certain executives did that and nothing happened. That policy is there, and it shouldn't be tolerated because now these cops might lose vacation days or worse for doing their job because they get the luck of the draw. They happen to get the biased investigators because I wonder why, you know.
I wonder why, too. Just to put a bow tie on this, and this perhaps would be a better question for Eric Sanders. Would the department potentially retaliate against the officers involved if they hired a lawyer to point out the flaws in the process, whether it be, say, calling men in or him getting a get-out-of-jail-free card from Commissioner Tisch when every other individual who was arrested had to go through arrest processing? If those parts of the investigation were brought to light by an attorney and they pointed out the unfair process that took place and their client ended up winning some sort of judgment, would they then be vulnerable for drummed up charges and termination?
That's a fair question. I'd have to ask an attorney, even though I know you go to these things with the union attorney, but you could bring your own if you feel.
No, you bring your own attorney.
The
union attorney behind closed doors
is
on the phone with Commissioner Tisch saying, you know, what do you want here, Commish? Like they need to move things up over with those at the top of the food chain.
Maybe they help author some of their posts against certain police officers and police commissioners online. Who knows with CCOB? So we're speaking of the soccer mom. You wrote this article the other day about the betting odds. Actually, speaking of Eric Sanders, before we get to that real quick, he has this little tidbit up here. Where is this right here? Captain K.E. Bowen's case was just dismissed and sealed in Queens Criminal Court. If you guys remember, Captain Bowen was falsely arrested for defending a family member from a creep that was arrested just the day prior for being a creep on his daughter, not his daughter, it's someone in his family. Now, he was charged by the Queens District Attorney after conferring with Internal Affairs Chief Thompson, who decided that he's going to do a hit job. So this case, we were on this, but now you're going to hear a lot more about it. And right there, kudos to Captain Bowen, who's this guy is loved by a lot of people. He's a great guy. That was a railroad job. And now we'll see how Mr. Thompson feels when we could just kind of forecast the future. You're served with some lawsuit paperwork, which I'm sure you're going to have a lot. I mean, you got some from me, too. You're going to have a lot of lawsuits on your hand because you have a lot to answer for with your crazy ways of doing things and things that you do in your own office because you're the biggest hypocrite, one of the biggest out of the police department. But back to this betting. There's a thing out there, and I didn't even catch wind of this, right? And now you brought this up because you wrote this article. So there's a betting odd on the soccer mom being out of here in the police department, being a commissioner.
Yeah, this is like the hottest new thing in political betting, too. I mean, look at how much money already has been waged on her departure. $19,000. At the time that I wrote the article on Tuesday afternoon, it was $17,500. So in between that period, $1,500 more has been wagered on Commissioner Tisch's potential departure before 2027. This is the most interesting part, though, because betting odds tend to fluctuate. It happens all the time. But when you look at the past week, the odds were 42% roughly, which is less than 50% a week ago today. But then at this current point in time, at 11:25 on Thursday afternoon, they've skyrocketed to 77.4%. So that makes me a little bit suspicious because I believe that some form or fashion of insider gambling could be going on here. In other words, people who are in the know that Commissioner Tisch is potentially going to be leaving before the end of the year. And as such, they've decided to place bets on it. But no extremely high singular bets have been placed. They're all in like the $500 to $1,000 range. But still, it makes me suspicious about the possibility of people within One Police Plaza or City Hall betting on these sorts of things. And the article I wrote was more so to raise a warning about the possibility of people within the NYPD and other city agencies betting on politics, which seems like it raises a moral concern because they're directly involved, but also an ethical one because if they have insider information, they're essentially able to make money off of their scoops. And that's inherently unfair. This is something that police departments are going to have to look at before there's a problem, because if this blows up in their face, they could have a real scandal on their hands.
So, I mean, there's no evidence to support this, but
no evidence, pure speculation, but it is something that feels like it has a high probability of combustion. I'll leave it at that.
They're saying someone that's sitting near her right now, or someone that's in the circle, can go right now on this website and say, I'm going to bet, because they know of something in regards to the soccer mom, and say, I'm going to bet on this right now. And they're going to make a lot of money because they know some stuff that we don't. Because I see what you're saying, that there's a day that it spikes, right?
I mean, just look at this stretch from May 11th, 7 p.m. It's 49.5%. And then 2 hours later, it skyrockets to 80%. So you mean to tell me, Sal, that in the span of 2 hours, it goes up by 23%? Something looks real fishy here. I mean, if we're betting on a Yankees-Red Sox game where Max Fried is ruled out as the starting pitcher, I still don't think the betting odds fluctuate that much.
Slightly, but I wouldn't say the teams are still the team unless there's a major injury.
The bullpen is still the bullpen. The lineup is still the lineup. It doesn't fluctuate by 23% in one singular hour. That made me a little bit suspicious, paired with the fact that you had a certain radio host and many other people on social media originally saying, she's not going anywhere. She's here for the long haul. She's never going to leave. And then later they start to change their tune. Well, she's not going anywhere for the time being. She's going to be here past Memorial Day, past July 4th. But Labor Day weekend, I can't make any bets or guarantees. So that leads me to believe that people in the know realize that Tisch is kind of actively job hunting and exploring various possibilities. So if she does end up leaving, it's going to happen in the later portions of the year as opposed to the earlier. But there is a decent chance that it does happen. Otherwise, the betting odds wouldn't be soaring to around 80%.
Look, Frankie Palaguachi said, I wouldn't be surprised if this happened next week, just saying. I think I gave you the entire rundown of what's really going on, what's really happening behind the scenes. It's really up to her whether she leaves today, tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, because, again, there's a whole political machine that wants to get behind her. She has her own money. I mean, she could do that, but that offer's on the table for whatever position it is with Kathy Hochul, her friend, right? If she wants to leave right now to go do that she could do that right now, right this second. Obviously, there's no prestige in being over there versus being a police commissioner, because if you want to run for mayor of New York City, it's better that you stay as the police commissioner. And it works both ways because, again, all the positive coverage she gets is a reflection on she's going to use it for herself, but also the mayor, who gets nothing but bad publicity from race, religion, crime. Everyone forgets who the previous mayor was and what that person did with his cronies. and what they brought to the table that is still lingering to this day. And then, of course, the soccer mom was the police commissioner the last couple of years. But instead of saying you oversaw a 300% increase in homicides and stuff and crime in subway and transit, they're saying it's Mamdani. Do you see how the social engineering is with that? But if you look at it from a political standpoint, that they are mutually beneficial the longer they stay together until it completely combusts. No one's trying to push each other. But, of course, they're word around of interviews. They're the people that are being, talking to Mamdani about this position. So they already have everything in place, like a fall safe in case she goes, she leaves, she takes the job. She says, I leave in September, October, November. I personally could tell you that she shouldn't be there because she's just unqualified for the position. It is so blatantly apparent with the chaos underneath her. I mean, we have one scandal now with the sticky fingers, but to see all this stuff and now you're seeing this betting, they're going to drive this up. So, I mean, I don't know who's behind that. It's very funny that it happened in between a 2-hour span. There's a 23% jump. Something's going on behind the scenes, or somebody know what. Basically, if you know what's in her mind, then you know what's going to happen. I can't tell you that I'm not a mind reader, although Joe cops out there think they are a mind reader when it comes to this show. But that part, I can't answer you what she's going to do. But clearly, someone around her might know something and is leaking it out. Because as you know, the biggest leakers in the New York State Police Department is DCPI and all the cronies that work there.
And the upper echelon executives as well. Those are the ones. It's funny that they have the nerve to send out emails. You're not allowed to speak with anyone. You're not allowed to leak information, yet they're the ones who are leaking everything. It's like you made the rhyme, you did the crime. Reed brings up a good point here saying that she doesn't have to job hunt. Some idiot will call her based on her last name. Yeah. Reed's correct in saying that she doesn't have to job hunt per se, but she's definitely kind of looking around and asking around and seeing what else is out there. I happen to believe, I know, Sal, you kind of disagree with me on this, but I happen to believe she needs another stepping stone job before she eventually runs for mayor. But with that being said, I do believe that she does want to run against Zoran Mamdani in 2029 because she thinks that she can beat him. Even though it's going to be a tough ask, I think if she goes and serves in the city council for 2 years or maybe gets a job with Kathy Hochul up in Albany, depending on how things shake out with the upcoming election, she gets a little more visibility. She's in a little bit more of a prestigious role. And then she has the appropriate resume to go challenge Zoran Mamdani in 2020. I
tell you, she's prominent amongst the Jewish community, but people in that community have started to come out against her, and that doesn't bode well either. So I don't know. I mean, look, as you know, one of the people that keeps pushing her out there is WABC Radio and John Katsimatidis, who loves to do this kind of stuff. But by the way, she's a Democrat. She's not a Republican. Right? Stretch your imagination. I mean, her brothers, they're entrenched in the Democrat Party. There's Epstein associate. Epstein's a Democrat. I mean, she is not a Republican. So for him to go out of on a limb and say, oh, she would make it great, that just shows you the level of social engineering that's behind this. So she's got another billionaire that owns a media company behind this. So with that being said, this is where this started to, roll downhill. Well, oh, maybe she could run for office, because I don't think anyone in their right mind listening to her speak can say that she would make a good candidate. Because easily point out politically that. But again, the mayor, if he's going to run against her, keeps his mouth shut. This is your show. You're the police commissioner. Oh, wait, you got scandal after scandal after scandal. You're coming after me. I'm the mayor. I kept crime down. See, that's the kind of stuff that would be lobbied against each other on a debate stage or, in the media when they run for office. But could I see her leaving? Yeah, because it looks like everything that's going on is at her feet. The buck stops with her. So some things she knows a lot about. Others she seems to not know anything about. And I don't know what kind of effort she's made to learn about everything, which you should know. But again, she doesn't come from the culture. Therefore, that is it's always been the biggest hurdle that she will never be able to overcome. The other candidates you heard, but I told you that one was out, and I guess they came out and said it themselves that they wrote a book. That was Rodney Harrison. I told you he didn't want this job before he said it publicly. So with that being said, it leaves Abbasi and Al-Tahiri and the two other people that nobody knows their names that also interviewed. And I only said the three main names were the people that keep throwing out there because, first of all three were former NYPD executives, and it would be far better than the soccer mom. But obviously one doesn't even want this job or whatever. I mean, he publicly said it, but I told you that they were working on a project. Once he wrote that book, that's a pivot towards I don't want to be involved anymore in this little circle, whatever political circle you want to call it. So that leaves the other two. And the problem was always if they bring in Al-Tahiri or they bring in Abbasi, that's a Muslim person replacing a Jewish person. And that's all you're going to hear about. And then they're going to put the articles out. Crime is up. Look, we had our hero is there. And this is the spin you're going to see. I'm just telling you how the political world works, folks. Whether it's true or not, that's what you're going to be seeing. And New York City is full of low information voters. You saw in the last election. So it doesn't take much to tip the scales one way or the other. So that's going to be the spin with that. But I find it very odd with that betting odds thing, how you caught that little jump at it.
Yeah, like in a 2-hour span. That was incredible. I almost think that John Katzimatidis is taking a litmus test to see how Tisch is perceived by the public, to see if he should bankroll her for a potential mayoral run in 2029. She has to do a lot more to kind of endear herself to the everyday man and woman in order to increase her visibility. And she's playing from behind, seeing as Zohran Mamdani has taken off as a social media superstar. But Sal, if the going ever gets tough within the police department, if there's a scandal or something of that nature, I do believe that she's going to try and look for a safety valve somewhere else to jump to another job to try and keep her reputation in line with what she wants if she's going to be running for mayor in 2029. She does seem like she wants something higher up in terms of political office. So that's for sure.
Right, JDP says it good here. The mayor can't say anything to her. She has to leave on her own. If he boots her, the media cycles will destroy him. If he's gonna do her in, he needs to do it sooner than later. Can't wait another 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, remember, President Trump himself said Mamdani has a fantastic police commissioner because she went to school with Ivanka Trump years ago, even though Tisch is a Democrat. So she's getting positive publicity from all different directions. And to a certain degree, as much as Mamdani doesn't like her personally and doesn't enjoy being overshadowed by a billionaire in City Hall, especially at the press conferences, he does like the fact that he can kind of pawn off all the responsibilities within the police department to her. And he does like the fact that no matter what he does, he's going to be getting positive publicity because she's there. So because of those two things, he's kind of taken a step back and walked away from the police department and allowed the car to drive itself. He's not very involved at all on a day-to-day basis.
Special Hagen say here, if Tisch works with Hochul, she will learn how to deal politically at a higher level. She's struggling with that now. But you lose the prestige of saying, I'm the commissioner and I brought crime down for as long as she sticks around. Even though we know that's not true. It's far from the truth. I'm going to tell you a story that happened in transit. It is not true. But that's what they keep running with. Crime is down. They were telling you crime was down when the Brooklyn Megillah happened. There was a puff piece about the soccer mom when that entire fiasco happened in the liquor store. That just shows you the level of what they're doing. And remember, the mainstream media doesn't write any. Do you ever see them writing anything negative? You know, scandal after scandal after scandal overseen by the soccer mom. They don't write that. They write the opposite. She's got this in the bag. The longer she stays as police commissioner, the longer that will continue. And although you and I and many others realize the truth, low information New York City voters only see what they're reading in the paper and CNN and Fox News and all these things. And all they see is she's driving crime down. That's what they're saying. That it must be true. I'm voting for you. That's what they're saying. At least that's the thought process behind the campaign, we'll say, of a potential Tisch for mayor run, you know?
I think she would shine a little bit more if she got a higher level political position before running for mayor. People in the past, I've heard it on social media from a number of different sources, it floated the idea of Hochul maybe replacing Adrian Adams as her lieutenant governor with Tisch.
JDP, what he said here is true. Sal, driving crime down doesn't get you elected in New York City. Nobody cares about crime.
And it's all about narrative framing as well. Crime could be down, but violent crime could be up. And those two things are two different things. But as I was saying, I mean, if Tisch decided, or if Hochul decided that she wanted Tisch to be her lieutenant governor running mate, as opposed to Adrienne Adams, that maybe elevates Tisch's profile a little bit more and helps her for a mayoral run. I'm going to say that she really, I'm going to stand 10 toes down on the ground on this. She needs another position before she runs for mayor, because becoming police commissioner, she's not well known and visible enough. In the same way, I mean, Giuliani, when he ran for mayor years ago as a former prosecutor, whatever, he was very well known amongst common New York City residents. Tisch doesn't have that same visibility, and she's not as recognizable, especially in the era of Mamdani.
Rudy ran on "I brought the mob down." What's Tisch's claim to fame? This
is kind of my point. And people, the "I brought crime down" doesn't pass the smell test at all, because people are walking down in the subway and they're seeing people getting bags snatched. It's still a mayhem show on the street. So that's not going to be enough as your campaign platform. She needs another job, and she needs certain politicians to really start pushing her a little bit more. If Kathy Hochul gets behind her, I think you're going to see some more momentum moving the needle.
Nate H said it's funny. More casinos in New York City. What a good plan. Yeah,
I think Steve Cohen would like a word with Nate H after that, because it seemed like the minute he got his casino built, he no longer cared about the Mets.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding. Of course, there's been a lot of injuries and a lot more factors related to that, but it is true. I mean, the casino bidding war that's taken place, more specifically in the Bronx and Yonkers, because the Queens casino stuff was settled a long time ago. The bidding war in the Bronx and Yonkers is a lot more noteworthy, and there's been no transparency about what's going on with that. At one point, the Trump organization was planning on buying a golf course. Eric Adams was going to give it to him. It was a little bit of a back and forth that never materialized. Then Yonkers was going to get a casino. Their license was pulled at the last minute. There were allegations that the Spano family was behind it. So, I mean, the casino business in the tri-state area within the 5 boroughs and Yonkers right outside the 5 boroughs has been incredibly shady. And at a time when New York City could be using a lot more tax revenue to fund all these crazy programs, it seems like the politicians have dropped the ball in handing the licenses out in a timely manner.
Yeah, well, I like to see, because even Nate H brought up before, casinos work so well in Detroit and Atlantic City, right? It really brought crime down, right? It's you know, but speaking of Kathy Hochul, there was a post. It's the only time I've ever agreed with Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul responded. This is the first time I ever agreed with her. So, as we know, social engineer Laura Loomer, who has absolutely gone berserk, and I understand that she doesn't even talk to the president anymore. She goes online and says that Kathy Hochul has been communicating with Zohran Mamdani about a stand-down order on protests or something regarding NYPD. Laura Loomer, by the way, in the NYPD, I could tell you this from numerous sources, the executives call her that, quote, that EDP, unquote, which means that emotionally disturbed person, okay? Kathy Hochul responds, lies, the voices inside your head don't count as sources. And you can take this for what you want. Are they the voices that she, you know, because she's an EDP, or are those the social engineers in her ear trying to push out this anti-religion, you know, whatever it is motive that she has, because she keeps going to say that Muslims are going to run wild in New York City, and she's just a zealot at this point with the crazy stuff she says. But that was funny. That
was absolutely hysterical. And for the record, Loomer has no sources within Governor Kathy Hochul's office, because no one in the right mind would even have a conversation with that nutcase. And saying that the NYPD has a stand down order because there could be tension between Muslims and Jews, that's the opposite of the truth. What she doesn't account for, ignorantly enough either, is that the agency has a ton of employees who are Jewish and Muslim, right? So Like, this is a very racially and ethnically diverse agency that has every motivation to protect everyone. They've actually done a great job at protecting everyone, especially in light of the attacks against ICE agents, which took place recently. I know some people are upset about that, but it was necessary. And, you know, as such, they're going to be protecting everyone out on the street at this protest, regardless of being Jewish or Muslim. They just want to make sure everyone's going to be safe. Loomer is just trying to incite a flame of violence. And unfortunately, the average everyday person who's filled with hate is giving her fuel and ammunition to do so. If everyone just ignored her, she wouldn't have a platform anymore. But sadly, there are too many hateful individuals that are getting behind all of her posts because it fits their narrative and it confirms their racial and ethnic biases, which are absolutely disgusting too.
Let's see. And Nate H did ask me, Sal is in South Florida, the sixth borough of New York City.
It already is. Yes.
Technically it is. Technically it is. Now, you could make it Boca, Fort Lauderdale, whatever, which one you want. Miami. Yeah. It's technically the sixth borough. I did want to say one more thing on Kathy Hogan before we get to this whole budget thing. A week ago, she said that, and you put it up, that crazy thing about masks. She wants the ICE agents to take the mask off. Now, it's funny because she was saying everyone has to wear their mask years ago. So she's a hypocrite. But I did actually review all of that. And I said, I find it hypocritical, but I don't know if I kind of agree or semi-agree. The ICE agents they shouldn't be wearing a mask for one reason. The NYPD doesn't wear a mask. Neither do state troopers. And the only time they do, it's got to be like -0 degrees. It's the only time I've ever worn a face mask on my face when I was working in the street, and many others that I know, because we were freezing. But to have a mask on, even when it's 90 degrees, we're not allowed to do that in the NYPD. We weren't allowed. I wasn't allowed in my time unless they changed the department policy. I haven't read it anywhere. It's not a uniform regulation. So, because that's not fair that they get to do that, but all the law enforcement statewide can't do that. So
horrible.
Yeah, I think I actually thought about it. Them not wearing masks makes sense because the cops can't wear masks. Why can't we wear masks? We don't want people seeing our face either. Some departments don't have name tags, so you don't know who the cops are. So then why can't cops wear face masks in New York? So actually reviewing that, it's actually a fair assessment because the cops can't wear one. Am I right?
Yeah, but I do believe there's a difference between the local cops and the federal ICE agents in this case, because the ICE agents right now are more vulnerable to identity theft. And if anyone comes to find out where these ICE agents live and they try and track them down.
Cops are the same.
Cops are the same, but
you know the cop, you see them every day. But now, they're wearing face masks. What's that? What do you think? They're not going to try to find out who they are? They can easily dox cops the way they dox ICE agents. So why do the rules don't apply the same to the cops than they do to the ICE agents?
I mean, I just think that ICE agents are the most hated population of human beings walking this planet right now. So they're a lot more vulnerable than average everyday cops. You're right that the average everyday cops, especially in New York City, where they have badge and shield numbers and all this other stuff, are very vulnerable because you can look them up on 50A, and there's been numerous problems with that. That's opened its own Pandora's box. But the bottom line is everyone's rabid right now toward ICE agents. So if they get their identity stolen, they're in a lot more danger than your average everyday local law enforcement agency. Does that mean that they deserve special privileges and that they should be able to wear masks while other agencies don't wear masks? Not necessarily, but I do understand why the public and many politicians perceive them as being more vulnerable. This has just turned into another politicized war, though, between Hochul and New York State and everyone involved. And what they fail to mention, because I listened to the governor's press conference on Monday where she talked about the budget, what they fail to mention is the number of cases where collaboration between ICE and local agencies is necessary. Also, ICE is carrying, I've said it a million times, I'll say it again, ICE is carrying out a federally directed agenda, meaning that local governments don't have a say in what they're doing, right? So you can't completely disallow collaboration, especially when local law enforcement agencies need to protect them. It's a totally ridiculous narrative that the way people are framing it is that the NYPD and local agencies are calling ICE and saying, who do you want us to go deport? We're going to help you. That's not what's happening. Perception and reality could not be further apart. And it's really sad because there's videographic evidence which proves that that's the case.
I know I'm gonna do one little pushback on that though. They do not collaborate. What they're doing is the police department and the police are there to keep the peace, to stop civil unrest. They're not there to aid ICE. They're just not. Do you want everywhere they show up, there's a crowd of people? If you're not there to police this crowd from going absolutely berserk and overrunning everything, then you need the police there to stop it. They're not there to say, you know what they did? They were trying to tell them, hey, guy, hurry up and get this person you detained in the car and get out of here before we only have X amount of people here. And it looks like they're going to overrun us too. So that's what the guy was telling him. I would highly bet on it. They were saying, are you done? Are you going to get out of here yet? Because the longer they kept that scene going at Brooklyn Wyckoff a couple of days ago, a week ago, the more people are going to show up. You can only withstand that barrage for so long. Remember, you have 30,000, maybe even less than that, cops. If you called every one of them off duty, how many people in Manhattan alone? 8 million. You are severely outnumbered. Then the job is in and out. Get these people in and out wherever you got to go. Because if that mob follows you, you're done. And that's what the police are there for. They're not there because they're arresting illegal immigrants and throwing them in the car for ICE. So I keep getting that, and I keep telling the people they're there to keep the peace. Civil unrest. That's what they're supposed to be stopping. They don't want that. Nobody wants that. Public safety. Remember that. We want you to budget.
Yes.
What on this budget? Because you had a lot on this. This came up the other day as well.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things we want to talk about as it pertains to the budget, which was recently released on Monday after a 5-week delay. The most important immediate revelation, though, is that the NYPD is not doing anything, and I mean anything, to reduce overtime spending. So the goal for overtime spending this year, fiscal year 2026, was to cap it at around $955 million, right? That was kind of like the realistic expectation that the department released in January. So far, Sal, and we're not even halfway through the fiscal year, the department has spent $758 million. So they're definitely going to be exceeding that number, even if they pull back overtime hours for more senior members of service and they reduce overtime to begin with. No matter how hard they try, they're going to be exceeding the originally intended number. But where things get really weird is the overt politicization of it. Same thing with the ICE agents and Chiosei. Council member Tiffany Caban is coming out and saying the reason that we have excessive overtime problems here is because you're sending officers down to the subway to arrest homeless people, and you're sending the more senior level people to do it at the oddest hours of the night where they're receiving overtime, especially on the weekends too. So it's become very problematic. It's become a political battle. What the department really needs to do is they need to hire an independent auditor who understands budgetary finances for cities, and he needs to look at who's receiving the most amount of overtime, and they need to find ways to cut down overtime for the most senior level people. Yes, you're going to need supervisors on the street working overtime from time to time and supervising subordinates. It's just part of the game, but you have too many people, Sal, making $170,000 a year in base salary, receiving double that amount or receiving that amount in overtime too, who are now making about $320,000 a year. That's become kind of the stem and the root of the problem. The upper echelon of the NYPD is dancing around that problem. They don't want to address it, presumably because they have friends in the higher level ranks who are benefiting from the arrangement. Then you have city council members and city residents who are saying, well, wait a second, us as the taxpayers are footing the bill and we want to end this, but we're going to blame it on you guys because you're not doing your jobs and you're deploying resources improperly. But we're going to diagnose the wrong resources. We're going to say you're going down to the subway to arrest homeless people instead of questioning why those in administrative posts are working 50 overtime hours a week. That's really what should be looked at. But it seems like the 1,000-pound elephant in the room is being totally ignored. I don't know why either.
Well, overtime is not really, it's never, the issues should never be overtime. The issue is always inner agency abuse, meaning abuse like, I don't know, somebody who says they're showing up to work and they're not there. Like that is somebody who's stealing. They're stealing, right? Stealing is a problem. Overtime is given from the highest authority there could be. We need X amount of people. We don't have enough people. We need Instead of the 8 that we normally get, we need 15. So that's where that comes from, allocating resources, meaning you don't have enough resources. Why? You have a lot of cops that are in administrative roles to this day that could easily be out on the street. If you're afraid of them retiring or whatever, so be it, because they have 20 years on. They shouldn't be sitting at One Police Plaza on a computer making overtime writing on a computer. That's what some of these people are doing. They shouldn't even be in those positions because the NYPD has failed to do this for decades now. Hire more civilians who can do all these jobs. The ICO lieutenant in a precinct does not need a female. We know why there was. It's a male ICO and a female cop sitting there doing his paperwork. We don't need the administrative lieutenant to not have just one female working as an assistant, but 2. That should be a civilian. We could go on and on and on. These people are trapped inside, and then that leaves what? They're going to, I got to do overtime today. I got to fill out this thing because the lieutenant told me to do so. Meanwhile, there's chaos in the street and you don't have enough people. And then they never pull these people because they have the same amount of overtime as the ones that are making arrests and doing all the hard work. So they don't know how to run the agency. That's your problem. That's the problem. That is a problem with that. So overtime, it's not about being abused because it's ordered, and someone up there that does the budget and all that stuff, they are allocating it the way it should look because they don't have the right personnel. Now, when all the cops are out doing all these administrative work, but you didn't hire enough civilians to cover this. So that's your first problem. And then second of all, there's people abusing things in the agencies, whether it be stealing time or allocating money to, I don't know, having stupid robots in transit that would never, that is one of the dumbest ideas, just not going to work. You're too many years, you're way ahead of where you're supposed to be. Having AI robot in transit, you're like, I don't know, this could be decades in the future, not right now, but you spent millions of dollars on that, and then you had to have cops watching it. See how you're wasting money? That is where your money's being wasted and allocated to stupidity. The overtime should always be factored. It's been there since the beginning. But everything else around it, this is just one agency. Where are you wasting money? And then who's actually stealing? Meaning, I say I'm coming to work and I'm not even there. That is a problem. Not the overtime is not. It's always going to be there overtime. It's everything else that is the issue. But they can't handle this.
To a certain degree, Mamdani is also kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, also because he lacks bureaucratic experience and knowledge. He doesn't know how to manage this. He keeps talking about wanting to have the World Cup in New York City and keeping the mobile TV movie unit because he wants to film TV shows in New York City. He wants it to be a desirable place. But all of those things are going to cost a lot of money when it comes to police overtime spending. That's why I say he's between a rock and a hard place. Do you say, like, we're not going to do those things and that's how we're going to slash overtime spending? Or do you just leave it alone and put the blame on Commissioner Tisch if the budget ends up exceeding what it was expected to exceed?
She does get some of the blame, but so does the first deputy commissioner, Tanya Kinsella, who's in charge of overtime.
She should get most of the blame, but in a world where crap rolls downhill, it seems like it's going to all come back to Mamdani. And remember, Mamdani went out on the campaign trail saying, we are going to cut police overtime spending and I'm going to make sure of it. So at the end of the day, even if he's supervising the supervisors, some of the blame does fall on him. That's kind of how I look on it. And he's not aware or creative enough to really determine all of these things himself. Also, he's so busy filming TikTok videos that I don't know if he's actively looking at the budget.
You get pushback here from Joel Ramirez says, I'm going to push back on that, Jack. The department slashed 26% of overtime.
Oh, no, I give them a lot of credit for slashing overtime, and they did do it on paper. However, Joel, they still are on pace to exceed overtime spending, what was expected for this year and also fiscal year 2025.
Look, Special Agent said it. Don't forget about the parties with Ashanti and Cardi B. We haven't heard anything about drones since the great.
Yeah, all of those appearances require extensive, large security details by the NYPD, which falls on the backs of taxpayers as well. Yeah, so you want to be a destination location. You want to have the World Cup. You want to have celebrities. that in of itself is going to cost a lot of money in departmental spending. And then when you account for the fact that it's being misused to begin with, you have an even bigger problem. I will bet money that the overtime budget, when it's all said and done, is going to be in the billions, not even in the millions. It's going to be 1.2 billion, which is going to be almost double what it was expected to be for fiscal year 2026. And then you're facing the problem in fiscal year 2027 of this happening. Now, I do believe that everyone within the department deserves a fair salary, but when you factor in the pay raises for the Detectives Endowment Association, the FBA, the new contract, all of that stuff, it's a lot tougher of a pill to swallow from a budgetary standpoint, because now you're spending more money without even doing anything different. You know, it's no different than when your rent or your utility bills go up. It's not like you change your lifestyle, but you're now on the hook for more money being allocated to living expenses. The department is facing a similar dilemma right now. So,
yeah. Well, I did want to show one last thing before we move on to the main event today. There was my friend took this video in I think it was Manhattan, and it's more Asian hate crime, you know? It's more Asian hate crime. I mean, it's mentally disturbed people or whatever, but this guy walks over. Look, he just starts assaulting these Asians. I don't know what. And then the guy walked over. In the second video, he starts to look. What's he doing squaring off with these people? What is he doing? And the other Asian guy was saying, you know, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? I mean, this is just out of nowhere, by the way. This is in this. I understand, you know, in the city things happen, but this is happening way too often. It's way too often that you see just these kind of people coming around. And you know, I thought this was a priority. I just remember a year ago hearing about it. We have task force. We have this. We have that. Suddenly, they're all forgotten about. They're all forgotten about. But this is more Asian hate crime, and I don't know. You know, whether it's the police department, the district attorney's office, or all these city council members, you need to put your heads together and figure out what you're going to do about this kind of stuff.
It's ridiculous.
We can't be having this. This is almost if it's not a daily occurrence, it's out there way too often that these people start fights and do all these things. There's the knockout game. Somebody got thrown down in a subway, down a flight of stairs. That person died, you know, and that guy shouldn't have been out. He had like 7 priors. I don't know why he was even out. Once you realize a couple of priors, it's mental institution time, and you can't leave no matter what program you do. You're there for a long time. You need a lot of evaluations. 8 priors, mental institution. How about 10 years? 1 year for each prior. You'll be covered by then. Trust me.
I like it. And the most disturbing part about that video is it was happening in broad daylight in the middle of the day. I mean, it would be one thing if this was happening at 2:00 in the morning and the only video you got was grainy surveillance footage from a restaurant or something like that.
It was terrible.
Average everyday people standing on the street filming someone getting assaulted goes to show that the criminals are not scared of the consequences.
No.
They feel empowered and enabled and entitled, like they could just go out on the street and attack someone with no consequences. Even so, if there are consequences, they might get arrested and brought back to the precinct, but no problem. They're going to be let out on the street a couple hours later anyway. So there needs to be a lot more law and order policing in the middle of the day. And then when criminals are caught, don't just let them back out onto the street. I hear what you're saying about institutionalizing them. I very much so strongly agree with that, because when you have someone with 8 arrests down in the subway acting a fool, it's time that they're institutionalized because they haven't proven that they can behave themselves as average everyday people. I agree with that. But as it pertains to this, like, you can't allow people to just run around the streets haywire doing whatever the hell they want. It sends a bad message.
If you have one prior, 1 year in an institution, if you have 30 priors, you're there for 3 decades. There's no way out of it. That would change a lot, right? Because you clearly have a problem. Oh, we need to care about their mental health. 30 years will do you well. 30 priors, 30 years. So before anything else, if you're an Italian American, tomorrow on the 15th, they're going to have a big event on Mulberry Street at Baby John's. Join the the Italian American Civil Rights League. Go to iacrl.org. There it is. The New Manhattan chapter will be tomorrow. There's going to be a big event with Baby John, the Cannoli King. He also has Baby John's Pizzeria. Jeremy Ornstein said I couldn't go there, but him and his IB boards go there. It was, that'll be argued later on in a courtroom. But I guess not the favorites of a guy like Jeremy Ornstein, but they do have the best cannolis in New York City, in my opinion. So go there, iacrl.org, become a member, and the Manhattan chapter is opening up. Also, SEOginzos.com. Tell them you're a friend of Sal's. You get 10% off whatever your needs are for your website and your social media platform. They do a great job. There it is. There's the website. They handle a lot of things behind the scenes. There's a lot of social engineering, and you have to learn how to cultivate your audience and try to get around all the social engineering. Because if your name is not Laura Loomer or Candace Owens, you're going to have about 5 views. 5 million for saying hello, how are you? And you go, what's going on?
Or Gunther Eagleman or Eric
Eagleman or any of these other clowns that you see have 30 million impressions, and you go, I don't even know who they are, but they're in your feed all day long. And of course, salgreco.com. Salgreco.com, we have a lot to offer. Like I said, we have shirts. You could also hit the support button. Whatever you can send us goes a long way. And the stuff that we do is we're about to get to some stuff that only we really harped on. There you could also watch the show streaming there live. Also, if you want, when we come on live, 11:05 a.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. And like I say, salgreco.com also have articles. Jack wrote a beautiful article the other day about we discussed today about the soccer mom and the betting odds on her staying as police commissioner. So salgreco.com, get everything, shirts. You donate, watch videos for everything that involves the show. But now to the main event. Yesterday, you learned all about a certain deputy chief, the Teflon chief, who seemed to get away with so much in his career, and it all came crashing down in less than a couple hours, right? This was not only transferred, stealing time, has to pay back thousands of dollars for hours never worked. But this is no secret if you watch the show. So let's play this video because there's also something else besides that I want to get to. But let's play this and we'll get into it.
Coming to you from Atlantic Boulevard in sunny 85-degree Coppola, Florida. This is the Sal Greco Show with another news update on NYPD Deputy Chief Richie Taylor. Now, we exclusively reported on a lot of things in regards to Richie Taylor, but finally, he was administratively transferred this morning to CJB, the Criminal Justice Bureau. And there's a whole article in the New York Daily News about the $170,000 he had to pay back because he has sticky fingers, and that's his new name, Richie Sticky Fingers Taylor. Now, the question is, will he be indicted for stealing time? Because they did that to Tony Fabrizi because what? He was just a little old lieutenant, not a chief, I guess, right? He's an easy target. So why aren't we indicting Richie Taylor? So we also have a story of Deputy Inspector David Pigioli. Now, Pigioli, if you remember, I had posted about fudging numbers from the 83rd Precinct, and he was actually promoted, and he went to the Detective Bureau in Brooklyn South. So remember Captain Steve Hyland from TD20, who was demoted essentially because he was fudging numbers? Well, David Pigioli, according to my sources, just pled guilty to departmental charges for doing exactly that, misclassification of crime, and failure to supervise. But yet, he remains in the Detective Bureau in Brooklyn South as a deputy inspector. Steve Hyland was transferred to no man's land as a captain. More on all of this tomorrow at 11:05 a.m. on the Sal Greco Show, streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and on X at the Sal Greco.
There's so much there. There's so much there. But before I let you get into anything, it's funny. And listen, Magic Mario here, he's funny because he said, I believe Tisch is gone after Memorial Day.
Really? Really?
That's a short amount of time. It's only another week and a half there, or 2 weeks. But before Richie Taylor, David Pigioli there, who is a deputy inspector, was fudging numbers in an A3. right? And he actually got charged with this, and he pled guilty to it. Now, he was a captain and got promoted for fudging numbers. He was a captain and went to deputy inspector, and now he pled guilty to the misclassification of crimes and also a failure to supervise. Now, Steve Hyland, who I understand people don't like this guy. They say they don't like him. I'm not in a one of these contests where we have he likes this guy's better than this guy or that one. You have to be fair. He was a captain. He got removed from Transit 20 for doing the exact same thing, and he went to CJB. And that, my friends, is another administrative transfer. Poggioli didn't get that. He's in a detective bureau in Brooklyn South, which you've heard rumors about things in WhatsApp chats with those people. But he's over there getting promoted and now pleads guilty to doing exactly what they said Hyland did. And by the way, he had another person backing him, which was a former disgraced chief who's all over social media tagging a bunch of people, thinks he's going to be the mayor. Okay, that was who elevated him on the way out the door. And now what? Why isn't he demoted like the other guy was? The other guy's a captain. He's done. He can't get anything as a captain. He's done. He's captain in CJB. They said he was fudging numbers, right? This guy actually pled guilty to that. He was caught with that, but and this is what I'm saying, that you have this hypocritical way in the police department. One guy does the same thing, gets treated differently from the other guy who does the same thing and actually gets rewarded for it. And we're supposed to sit here and go, everything's fine and dandy in the police department. Let's go clap like seals every time they put out a video of somebody doing something great. The problem is.
Well, with Poggioli, the issue is, and you mentioned this in the video that we just played, it was also mentioned in the article, he pled guilty to departmental charges, but it was essentially a slap on the wrist. So they said, okay, you fudged the crime numbers. That's fine. We're just going to move you to another bureau. It's not the way that's not the way it should have worked. When you're fudging numbers, the implications are a lot greater, because if you lie about the numbers, that impacts the crime deployment strategy. That impacts how the civilians in the neighborhood feel about crime. That impacts what the department is doing resource-wise. So this is a much more serious event, Sal, than the department seems to acknowledge. And you just wondered, does he have friends behind closed doors that are in the upper ranks of the department who's calling and saying, can you get me off the hook on this one? I'm not saying that he does, but it felt like they took it very easily on him. Whereas if he was someone else and he was caught fudging numbers, he might have been facing a demotion. Remember, he's a DI, which means that he got a discretionary promotion. So that means that he must have done something extraordinary to have gotten that promotion. And seemingly so, he got it because of his crime. He got it because of his crime numbers. So he lied about crime numbers to help him get a promotion. He lied about crime numbers, which had larger implications, as I just covered. And instead of, giving him highway therapy or really looking into what happened, they decided to move him to the detective bureau in Brooklyn South, which, I mean, who's to say he's not going to go there and fudge the numbers there too? I mean, that's a very serious command to be in. And, you would, if he got a slap on the wrist like Captain Wilson and got moved to the communications division where he's out of sight, out of mind, you almost understand it a little bit more. But now having someone who was accused and found guilty of egregious offenses running a command, which is going to be dealing with a lot of crime, I don't think about that in a positive light at all.
No, but that's what happened. And, the reason we highlight, and look, I don't know either of these guys, these Joe Cop types that send me messages. Guys, listen to me. I don't have feelings. Take your feelings out of things. You guys are all sentimental and emotional instead of looking at the facts of what's in front of you. I don't know how they feel about it. I told you, Hyland's not a well-liked guy. Poggioli apparently is. It doesn't make what happened any more right or any more wrong. He was like you, and who's like me? I don't even know these people. What I know is their actions, and I know of the circumstances. You guys ignore that. Joe Cop your way through everything. That's why you're in the locker room. And the people, I'm going to be honest with you, civilians laugh at this. It's a joke what you guys are talking about. You fail to address anything and look at things through one lens. It's embarrassing. It really is. At this point, I mean, you guys really look in the mirror because you're the problem. I don't know how you try to justify actions that are not in tune with the public or what the police department expects from you, and just say, oh, well, you know, but he's a good guy, and that's why, and this is what it's wrong. And it's wrong that one guy's getting promoted for it and the other guy is essentially buried for life. But they both did the same thing. And why did they do that? Who was really pulling that string? Who was promising things if they did it? Well, they're wrong. They did it. But there's got to be more to that story. But you don't want to look into that. You just want to run the Joe Cop narrative, the hairbag narrative. It's really, this is what the world has come to. But before we get to Richie Taylor now, Frankie Pagliacci, $4.99 to the Sal Greco Show. Whistleblowers provide supporting evidence that gets ignored in the NYPD the NYPD trial court. But Richie gets a pass. Sticky fingers, the no-show chief, Richie Taylor. Just so you guys know how this all unfolded. Over a year ago, this show in particular, highlight this show. I know you might have others screaming all of a sudden, they're jumping up and down like they know everything. And and the way they jumped can't be too much because you got to be tall to jump. So, but thinking about this, we started in finding stuff. We had pictures of Deputy Chief Richie in a marked vehicle with a driver. And he was at somewhere in Brooklyn, right? At basically, I don't know, a female's house that she was married to. He was there for quite a while. And then he leaves, and they're both not in uniform. It's a Saturday. I thought it was Shabbats for his community. Apparently not for him. It's a holiday for him when he wants, and not a holiday when he has business, some kind of side business that we don't know about. And he was over there, and we started going into this. And of course, some people in the community, they came after me because, oh, you're going after our guy. But meanwhile, he has a couple of sycophants, but that's not the truth of what's going on there. So we kept pulling on the string and getting more evidence and getting more evidence. And then there were people filing complaints. We saw these complaints. So then and then we getting more about the stealing of the time, basically not showing up to work. Nobody knows where he is. Now we know about these 2 cars he had. Then we hear about Deborah Halberstam. That's the real person allegedly behind him his whole career. She has pushed this guy through the roof. That's how he came to stardom. Okay. And I remember an incident, and I can tell you guys this. He was at a polling location. He's electioneering. He was trying to electioneer for Heim Deutsch. Heim Deutsch was a councilman, just so you know, that ended up going to jail in particular because of him. But he went there in a Coney Island. Remember, I worked at Coney Island. He went to Coney Island. He was there, and he was trying to grab ballots and get numbers. And then someone working at the election poll saw a gun on this person and said, you can't have that around here. Who is this guy? So that's how it went to the highest levels. So it went to the commanding officer of the 6-0 at the time, was Peter de Blasio. And instead of giving this guy should have been suspended, he should have been charged. What did they do? Administratively transfer him. That was the first time he was. And by the way, there's a lot of witnesses to this. It's not me. There's a lot of witnesses to this. Administratively transferred the first time. So here he is getting a pass on a criminal act that should have been him going to jail. Instead, he gets rewarded. Administratively transferred, yet he finds a way to keep getting promoted. He goes from captain to DI to inspector and to deputy chief. And he did it in such a way. At one point, he was in the 61st precinct, which we have a story. Someone from there wants to come on the show. He did a whole job on this guy. He was the ICO. He was the integrity control officer in the 6-1. He was a menace to many cops. From the 6-1, he was the lieutenant for, at the time, Captain Winston Faison. And remember that Faison made it to deputy chief, but Richie Taylor was already he actually skipped him. He skipped 2 ranks to get promoted faster than Faison. So that just shows you the trajectory of this guy. Never had a command. He then became the CO of what? Manhattan South Investigations. Learned a lot there, right? This guy has been a menace his whole career. He's one of those guys that has that little smile. He's your best friend. And then he's doing all these little things on the side, right? And like we saw a video of Reverend Kevin McCall has been on this show confronting him, saying you're talking about me behind my back, because that's what he does. He talks about you to this guy, to that guy. That's how half of this stuff came out, by the way. We found out because of people he's speaking to. He speaks to a public forum all the time about all this stuff. He recently went to a dinner saying, I got a good one. I got 60 in a year. So he was bragging about his own charges. But last night, through sources, I heard he's supposed to be there was a Pakistani dinner for the Pakistani community. And guess what? They were supposed to honor Mr. Richie Taylor, who was a no-show. And there was no one in uniform, so it was no formal NYPD presence there. There might have been some off-duty executives there. They're only there to show their face. Obviously, they might be Pakistani or they're Muslim or they know these people. But there was no recognition of Richie Taylor, who yesterday you found out he was administratively transferred to the Criminal Justice Bureau. But there should have been A, a demotion, B, suspended, and C, he should be terminated, and there should be criminal charges. Because I'm pretty sure there's other case that's still pending over his head in regards to those photos that I spoke to you about. That's another issue and the numerous issues. From what I understand, again, through sources, is Sticky Fingers ran to the pension section and put his papers in. So he's on the clock starting yesterday. The order should be out sometime today, from what I understand, because it was past 4 or 5 o'clock yesterday. So this is the administrative transfer. This is the end of his career, essentially. But why is he not being told that he has to leave the job?
Yeah. So one thing we're not talking about enough, too, is how chummy he was with people within the department. I was doing some digging last night through his LinkedIn profile, and I was just looking at some of the posts he was commenting on and who he was associated with. And I came across a post. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about Julie Trivedi, the counsel to Commissioner Jessica Tisch. She serves as kind of like the legal consigliere, like Tom Hagen in The Godfather. But anyway, she was talking about a friend of hers who's like a fitness or entrepreneur of some sort, and how like friendly she is with this personal friend, not even related to police department business. And then you scroll down a little bit and you see Richie Taylor commenting, agreed, Julie Trivedi. And then the friend of the legal counsel for Commissioner Tisch comments back, Richie Taylor, with the prayer sign. So, I mean, like, this is someone who is very close friends with not only people within the higher ranks of the department, but also their personal friends, which is very rare, because even if you meet someone that you become good friends with on the job, you're likely not going to become good friends with their friends at any point down the line. So the fact that Taylor had deep-rooted relationships and connections with all of these people speaks to the level of enablement that was taking place. He was viewed as more of a personal friend and a savant and a savior than a professional police officer who was wearing a deputy chief's uniform.
So just last night, like I said, he was supposed to get honored, and apparently he was a no-show, because I told you he went to go. From what my sources are telling me, he went to go put his papers in yesterday. It'll show up sometime today. We'll see when we can get our hands on that. And his career is essentially, it's over. But it's not over in that there's a lot of people that are asking questions, because like I said, he should have been demoted. He should have been suspended. He should be asked to leave or be terminated right now by the police department, and he should be criminally charged, because it's not just the 170,000 or 20. It's between 20 and 170,000 that they're trying to get back. But there's more than 1 year's worth of time. And by the way, he had a helicopter fly over his daughter's birthday party. Okay, and we know that he went over certain people's head, including the commanding officer at the time, which was Winston Faison. Okay, these are things that you're going to hear about it. They're all going to come out. Okay, I got this through a bunch of sources of what this guy's up to and what he's been doing. He has been walking on air. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Tony Fabrizi is alleged to have taken a couple of 100 hours in time. He was driving his car here and there. Isn't that what this guy was doing? He had 2 cars. By the way, again, through sources, the City Hall car he was using to drive around. The advisor to Eric Adams at the time was that guy's name, Iseldorf. There's Kushner's business partner or close associate. I wonder how that'll happen with Eric Adams. More questions, huh? But he was driving that person around. Was that on job time? Because nobody knew what he was doing. On job time, nobody knew what the hell this guy was doing. Ever. Nobody knew what he was doing. And you're right. People are screaming also, the DEI crowd, right? The DEI crowd. Mark Stewart, Victoria Perry. By the way, I want to make mention that Donald Cowley was a police commissioner that stopped the height requirement, because certain people in this crowd should worry about them being a DEI hire themselves, because 5'7" was the limit. If you're under that, you wouldn't be in the NYPD. So thank Donald Cowley, who stopped the DEI. Otherwise, a height requirement would stop a lot of people that wouldn't be in the NYPD or had a career there. So getting back to this, with Richie Taylor and what happened, he has this thing. He has 2 cars. We also know about the thing he did with the electioneering. He survived that, and he keeps climbing up the ranks. And then for the last couple of years, when he's supposed to be signing in and he's not there, and people screaming about Mark Stewart and Victoria Perry, Mark Stewart was documenting everything. One thing I can tell you about Mark, okay? And I know he was a detective. He worked with Eric Adams, but he wasn't doing what Eric Adams was doing in his career. You don't hear about him running around and being a rabble-rouser and screaming and hanging out with shady people. He just happens to have known Eric Adams. So here he is. He's documenting all this stuff, but he can only take this to the highest person, which is who? Would be Internal Affairs, would have been Chief of Department. At that time was Jeffrey Madry. Then we know who else was the Chief of Department. All these people, and it never goes anywhere because this guy is on another level. There's all these branches of things going on. And then Richie Taylor is like right up here. He's like either neck and neck with the police commissioner, a little bit higher. And we don't know why. I mean, Devorah Halberstein, her name keeps coming up. But then you shouldn't be yelling about Stewart or Perry, who did everything they could to monitor the situation, meaning they're seeing this, but they can't do more. They don't outrank him. And they don't have the stroke to take this down. So I understand. And Victoria Perry, we know the Consofrito stuff. And she had that stupid party she was planning at 1PP, which would have been a huge conflict of interest. But they promoted her because they don't want her talking about this, because she never saw him. If you want to do a criminal case right now, there's your witnesses. There are your witnesses right now. There's executives that have seen that he was nowhere to be found. Nobody knows what he did. He's taking cars out. Where's Sticky Fingers? I don't know. Where's the no-show chief?
Well, he's being allowed and enabled to do what he did because he's a show horse, as someone attests to in the comments here. He's someone who satisfies a DEI need because there's not a lot of Jewish police officers, and he's someone who can serve as a liaison to the community, even if half the community hates him. And he also has endeared himself to the upper echelon of the department to the point where he was treated like the golden boy. I'm bound to believe, just based off this LinkedIn interaction that he had with Julie Trevidi, that he was receiving some sort of legal advisement about how to do all of these things in a manner that was legal and a way that it was brushed under the rug, because it wouldn't have been allowed had things been enforced as they should be. If they were enforcing the rules within the department the right way, he wouldn't be allowed to have a flyover for his 8-year-old daughter's birthday, or drive around multiple company vehicles, or say he was on post when he was actually in another state, or he wouldn't be able to drive around and go on endless vacations. So he's being advised from within, and the problem is his offenses crossed the proverbial line to the point where they felt like they had to do something, right? It's like, you want to do a flyover, we'll let it go. You want to go with 2 cars, we'll let that go too. But once you start getting a little too cocky and pompous, which I do believe that he did, that's when they have to draw lines in the sand. And that's what's happening right now. He's going to be able to retire with his full pension, by the way, guys. I've seen a lot of speculation online. They're going to take his pension away. He's going to be up for criminal charges. No, none of those things are going to end up happening. He's still in good standing within everyone involved.
Wait a minute, so. Criminal could at any moment they could turn around and
they could turn around, but Sal, it's not going to happen.
Listen, it's not the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. It's not the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. He worked at the headquarters of Community Affairs in Manhattan. It's Alvin Bragg's office.
Alvin Bragg's not going to do it.
And it's not, even though he knows Eric Gonzalez, it's not a Brooklyn case. It would be a Manhattan case. He's been in Community Affairs for quite a while, and they're headquartered in One Police Plaza. We don't know where his real office is, but that's
what Trivedi, by the way, worked for the Queens District Attorney. I know it's a different borough. I understand that, but he's in
the know. The guy's in the know. But
yeah, she knows Alvin Bragg very well.
But I'm talking about all these people that there's all kinds of cases this would affect, right? And Eric Sanders is having good points. He says Taylor's case is going to help so many others as a great comparator case now. Even mine. Even my case, okay? It does prove that here I am paying a price because I have a friend that's in politics. This guy's stealing time, running around with cars. There's allegations of bribes. There's allegations of so many things, and yet nobody stopped them, and no one knows what he's exactly doing. But Sal Greco should be terminated, and not this guy who's criminally. He's really doing a criminal act. He goes beyond the criminal association, or he is in a criminal act, okay? And he probably owes a lot more than what they're saying, because the flyover for a helicopter, do you know how much that costs? By the way, there's people that have been charged for that in the NYPD. Go back 10 years ago. Mr. Michael Harrington, unfortunately, paid the price for one of these stupid flyovers that they say, well, he asked for this thing. Well, this guy did it. This guy did it and went over everyone's head. You know?
Yeah, right. Harrington was kind of the scapegoat for de Blasio's relationship with Jeremy Reichberg and Jonah Reboats, or however you pronounce his name. That was kind of an unfortunate set of circumstances. Harrington did go a little bit far, though, because he had closed down lanes of the highway on the BQE to shuttle Reichberg around. He had helped Reichberg settle personal disputes related to diamonds that had been stolen.
What's the difference between Reichberg and this guy right now? He did the.
No, I agree. I mean, both. With that case specifically, Jeremy Grant and Harrington were both hung out to dry. I thought Timmy Bidet, when he was sending sergeants to go protect Reichberg's jewelry store and got caught by the FBI, an undercover FBI agent actually on wiretap doing that, I think he crossed the line too. But listen, all of those guys paid the price for it. We've moved on, and I think everyone needs to pay an appropriate price if they're committing offenses like this. Yep. Taylor's offenses are perhaps even crazier when you consider the consistency with them. I mean, if Grant and Harrington and Bidet were kind of involved in a pay-for-play scheme and it was happening under the table and it wasn't really impacting anyone majorly, it's still corruption. It's still wrong. They still deserve charges, but it's not as crazy as what Taylor's done, given how long he's been doing this.
He's on the cover of the Daily News today, by the way. He said, hey, I mean, Eric even said here, Eric Sanders said there's evidence to support what was said about Taylor's ghost assignments and commands. You know, I'm telling you, this is not, it's just, there's numerous sources here on this stuff. Lenny Rice says you're 100% correct in saying nobody knew what Richie Taylor was doing. So why doesn't the PC ask for his resignation or at least demote him?
Because her legal, as I just pointed out, the PC's legal counsel, who worked first for the Queens District Attorney's Office and then the Bronx District Attorney, is perhaps advising Taylor on how to handle everything. He's high up enough in the pecking order where he can get access to someone like that. That's my suspicion anyway.
And here's the thing. Even Eric now says they could bring a criminal case despite retiring, right? That's true. JDP says if he files for retirement, he's going to have to forfeit a lot of financial benefits. He will get a pension, but he can't get his terminal payout, variable, and pistol.
Well, but there's gonna hang on, guys, because I see
pistol if he leaves while on probation.
I see people going crazy over here. What is going to happen and what should happen are two very different things. We all know that Taylor's going to be making backroom deals with the district attorney in Manhattan and talking to various people. Perhaps, and I'm just playing out a hypothetical here, he pleads guilty to charges regarding theft of time, but says that he's innocent on larger charges, and he strikes a plea deal with the district attorney that allows him to keep his full pension with benefits and all of that stuff, but he is forced to retire, essentially. That's my greatest prediction about what goes on. He could be brought up on criminal charges. He could be investigated deeply, but is New York City really going to go down that road given his standing? I'm bound to say no, because if we've learned anything from the past, and even the past couple of weeks with Chayo say, it's that elected officials and those who are powerful enough are going to be protected. And I think that's what's going to happen here with Taylor. Unfortunate as it may be.
I'm telling you, this guy is a treasure trove of people here. If he's still in service, he's off the books. He should be good. We're trying. There's going to be more to this. Like I said, he ran to the pension section yesterday from my sources, and he's in there. And it should come down some point today that he's. I mean, look, he's not going to CJB. This guy's his whole. Nobody's calling now because he has no links back to community affairs. He's done. So I don't know what's to come of this, but we're going to stay on top of it. And I'm going to tell you how this was told, how this went down. All right. So because this platform has continued pushing this issue, I don't know if people know this. Yeah, you're right. I don't have 1 million followers, but yet get 0.1% of an audience to watch this. But the people that do watch this, they're people that are reporters. You have district attorney people. You have people in those offices. You have the soccer mom herself. You have all these chiefs. You have all these attorneys. We have all people in the Trump administration. I know this because we all talk to each other. Those reporters kept asking questions. And they kept asking questions because they were saying, we saw this here. What's going on with this? What's going on with this? What's going on with this? And then boom, they came out with what really happened because they were trying to hide this. And they shouldn't be doing this. This is the soccer mom's DCPI who wants to control everything, because if you're going to run for mayor, you can't be having scandals underneath. This kind of stuff will qualify you from being a mayor, by the way, having this kind of craziness underneath as a police commissioner. But the soccer mom has this blocked off because, that's her friend. There's a lot of pictures with them together, right? And Richie is friends with her, right? Known her for a long time. So this is the problem. It looks like he's been protected by her and many others, while others suffer the wrath and pay the price for things that are far less more minuscule, or things you're trying to allege or at the same level but nowhere near. I saw somebody saying something about the overtime. This is not overtime. You could audit overtime, but it's going to go back to the same circuit.
This is theft. And what if I told everyone in the audience that she may be protecting him, but he's also protecting her? Yeah, I said it out loud. And what I mean by that is he's making sure that all of the crazy decisions that she's making are being executed and implemented at his level. And he's making sure that all of her mistakes are being covered up. In other words, if you have a squad car that's broken and has an AC that doesn't work and has a flat tire and you're unable to drive it, he'll find a way to just park it somewhere and put it out of sight, out of mind, and make it seem like it's not even an issue at all. Right? So this is very much so a two-way bureaucratic street where two people in city government are benefiting from a mutually beneficial relationship, where Taylor's getting what he wants and Tisch is getting what she wants. And I'm bound to believe that this relationship is going to continue after he leaves the department as well at some point. I don't think he's running for public office because he's too disliked amongst a number of Jewish people and people in other minority communities as well, for reasons we'll talk about another day. But I don't see him becoming an elected official. I could see him getting like a diplomat or an advocate type of role in city government. And Jessica,
you out of your mind? He's known to be he's been labeled a thief. You can't have a thief laying around because
I know, but cats have, in the same way that a cat has 9 lives. Eric Adams was at Mar-a-Lago hanging out with Brock Pierce a couple weeks ago. I mean, time heals everything in this game. Jeffrey Madry is apparently taking the bar exam after he was accused of some pretty insane offenses and found guilty kind of a number of them. So, I mean, if you just give it a little bit of time, Sal, time heals everything in this game.
He's done, and he runs anywhere. He does anything. This will follow him if this stands, but I shouldn't, because you're right. Lenny Wright keeps posting this. The soccer mom should demote him, take his rank, should have suspended him and also terminated him and recommend those charges, which I don't know why any district attorney could just jump in and say, hey, we got something here. Isn't that what they did to Tony Fabrizi? And that was for something this is egregious. Theft of time is not overtime or whatever they're trying to say Fabrizi was doing, who, by the way, is a lieutenant and needs permission. So unless someone didn't tell him he could do that, then that would make it a crime. But there were people that said that, and he still got charged, that is a hit job, folks. That's what that's called. And this, you can't have one without the other. That was a good thing when we watched Married with Children. Remember that song with Frank Sinatra? Yeah, I like that one. Well, this is same thing here. You can't treat one different than you do the other. I don't care what rank this guy is. This has been rumors and allegations forever with this guy. And sooner or later, it was going to catch up, and here it was. And instead of saying, why is this guy getting charged? You hear the DEI nonsense in the back, all this crazy stuff. Focus on the facts of this case and what's going on with this case. This guy got special preferential treatment, and everyone should be asking why. Why, and why is he not being charged? Because people have lost everything for nothing. I mean, my friend that I know, they charged him departmental charges they said he left work early to go to the gym, meaning he signed out and then he left 5 minutes before work on they named all these different occasions. It accumulated 80 hours or something. Jeez. So they hit him with these charges and administratively transferred him. And this is a story. Maybe someday he could come on the show and explain this. And he had 5 minutes. The 5 minutes you're allowed to leave early. They didn't care because someone had it out for him, but they couldn't criminally charge him, saying 5 minutes over. See what I'm saying? They treat people differently, and there's a two-tier justice system. And I hope everyone sees that.
And it's not like he had exactly a very ceremonious or memorable police.
Oh, give me a break. He was what was he doing? He was in the 6'3" as a cop.
26 total arrests, 24 of which were the misdemeanor variety. And also keep in mind, this is something that needs to be noted about his policing record too. I mean, policing in New York City back when he was a police officer, because he's been an executive for a number of years now. Policing in New York City in the late 2010s and 2000s, you could go out on the street and find an arrest like it was nothing, right? So to only have 26 arrests in 20 years on the job, I mean, that's not exactly screaming I should be promoted, especially not as quickly as he was promoted.
I like this one, and I want to leave it at this because we'll continue this on another show. There's going to be other people I know are going to come on and know this sticky fingers no-show guy. JDP says, I know it would have never happened, but what about all the cases for misuse of time that he substantiated while the commanding officer of Brooklyn of Manhattan South investigations years ago? We all know he didn't start stealing time recently as a deputy chief, and the integrity of those cases is compromised. And you are 100% correct. You are 100% correct.
It is compromised, but it's because the players involved are known to the department. It's almost like if they find out about weird behavior or illegal behavior, more accurately put in the case of Taylor, with someone that they know and they like, they're kind of going to find ways to justify it, or they're going to give them a slap on the wrist as a light penalty, or they're just going to try and brush it under the rug. But if you're a nobody, they're going to hang you out to dry, and they're going to try and make an example out of you because they want to show that they're disciplining their employees, and they need to do it in some form or fashion. So if they're not going to discipline people they like, they need to discipline every other Joe, Bob, and Billy on the street with very little transparency here. That's the name of the game. Transparency, because there's almost none of this. There was none of it with Taylor in the first place. When was he allowed to actually take out these cars versus when did he actually do it? Who gave him permission for the flyover for his daughter? I'm bound to believe that Police Commissioner Tisch and her legal counsel and everyone in the upper echelon of the department knew what was going on with the flyover, and they decided to make an exception for him because of who he is. So I mean, they're not going to go to the district attorney and say he was stealing time. So the district attorney's office is going to have to do a very thorough investigation in order to pursue charges. And I really don't see that happening because they have no motivational incentive to do this. It's not a high profile case. as far as the public is concerned.
I think it is actually hype. He made the top. He's in the cover of the. I mean, I was in the cover.
Sal, he's on the cover. I mean, listen, he's on the cover of the Daily News, but he's like buried underneath everything else within the cover of the
No, but he's in the front page. He's in the front cover.
Yeah, but let's contrast that with Jeffrey Madry's scandal. Totally different set of conditions here. Jeffrey Madry
they released so much more with Jeffrey Madry, that he had this whole, the whole thing he was doing involving Epps, and then he's also making her pay his wife money. I mean, there was a lot going. It's
Taylor's
and he's trying to horse in this stuff. This is different. This is a highly political figure who is taking time, right? He's politically connected. He's been doing it for a long time. Like I said, he worked for Haim.
Madry was not as politically connected as Taylor. Not even close.
And of course, it doesn't fit their little narrative. We all know who would start screaming DEI because it's Madry. And now again, I guess, but it's not. It has nothing to do with DEI. Like sometimes someone's actions are their actions, not their color or their race or their religion. It's the actions are the actions. So how do you look at this from that point? I mean, Rob asked this: do you think the repayment of funds from Taylor would prevent the NYPD from giving the case to the DA, an inside deal already negotiated?
Yes, it hit the nail on the head.
I don't even think there is a deal yet, because they might say this part, but there's public pressure could always change that. Just look at Trump. Public pressure could change anything. I mean, Matt O'Brien says unbelievable arrest, disgraceful.
Yeah, 26 of them. I don't think he has, just to set the record straight, I don't think he has a deal already in place with the DA's office, but I do think he has the connections where he's kind of moving things in that direction. And I don't see that much public outrage over. The public's not happy that this happened, but I don't see the public revolting in the same way they did when Jeffrey Madry was accused of his egregious crimes. Now, Madry also was the chief of department, whereas Taylor is a deputy chief. Maybe not as relevant considering they still are the executive level, but it needs to be charges.
See that what Eric's saying to say right there? He stole more than $500,000 over 2.5-3 years. How's that not a major problem? Grand larceny in second degree.
I'm just calling balls and strikes here and predicting what's going to happen based on all of the circumstances at play. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be charged criminally. I definitely do believe he should have been charged criminally. I said that months ago when we were exposing all the crazy things that he was doing. So I do think that he should be charged. Will he be charged? I would bet my money that he's not going to be charged and that this is just settled behind closed doors with shady union heads and DAs and people from the office and the commissioner.
It shouldn't be. I'm going to keep the way I keep saying that certain people should be promoted, which we didn't forget about. We'll get to that in a moment. This guy should be criminally charged. I'm sorry. And it's nothing personal. Your actions are what they are. And if you're what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Tony Fabrizi's a bad guy and all this stuff. Well, you're even worse. You're far worse. And anything you oversaw should be in question, because God knows what you were doing and all this other stuff. And we showed you this last week, a couple of days ago. He's in the article praising Jeffrey Madry. Oh, I'm here because of Jeffrey Madry. That's an eyeball. That raises a lot of eyebrows. What was going on there, And hey, Eric said it best here. The department did a great job fooling the public with the legacy media's help.
Yeah, I'm happy Eric noticed that as well, because Eric and I have had a lot of conversations about media attention, and this is classic media burying the lead on the Daily News. I mean, you mentioned he is on the front page of the Daily News. That in of itself indicates that this is a noteworthy revelation, right? But like, he's right beneath this story about an arsonist in the Bronx, which, contextually speaking, Sal, I mean, it's a big story. I'm not going to say it's not, but Taylor is a lot more newsworthy and noteworthy, given who he is as a public figure, than an arsonist in the Bronx. I mean, come on. So, like, they're classically putting the less important story as the main one, and then they kind of have the Taylor story secondarily. And notice, by the way, with Taylor, there's a small headline, and then it says right here, see page 2. Whereas here, there's like an actual caption giving you a preview about Daniel Santana, and then it says for more, see page 16. So Taylor's story is like a brief write-up, which they preview, and then they tell you is on the very next page, page 2. And then the arsonist story, they give you a little more information and then say, we have a bigger story on page 16. So
I got one.
Legacy media is burying it.
One more little thing before we move to the next topic real quick. I got information right now, again, through sources, that Richie Taylor's case was referred to the district attorney's office by IAB, by Internal Affairs. Someone, we don't know who yet, made a phone call to not prosecute or indict him for the stealing of the time. Who that someone is, we don't know. That is the latest that I just got. In regards to, like I said, this is a ever-evolving situation. So they did refer for criminal charges, and someone is begging or someone's calling to say, don't do it. So it's hanging in the wind. Well, like I said, with enough pressure, we might be able to change course here, because this is so wrong and egregious. Yet other people have been put through the ringer for far less, for nothing. So that is the latest on Richie Taylor, and we'll call him Sticky Fingers from now on, and we'll have more in the future, maybe even later today, on the more totality of circumstances with this. Very quickly, though, I want to get to, the Trump mobile, and also Trump. He's in China, and China's praising him, the president, which is wild because now they're best friends. So which one do you want to hit first?
I want to hit the story about what he said 2 days ago on Tuesday, because he was asked outside the White House before departing about the war in Iran and ending the war in Iran, and if he understood American struggles, especially financially, right now because of the war. And this was what he had to say in response to the reporter's question. Take a listen.
When you're negotiating with Iran, Mr. President, to what extent are American financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about American financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all.
See, I think Trump just single-handedly lost the midterms and the 2028 presidential election.
That's stupid. Ridiculous.
For Republicans. That soundbite will forever live in infamy, and we'll be reflecting on it in a few years.
And now, like I said, he's down in with China, and they're about to strike a deal. He said, I want to make a deal with America and all this stuff. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought you hated this guy. And again, is it WWE or is it for real? I don't know. You can't say something like that out loud, because do you own a Trump phone, Trump mobile, $59 million? Do you own one of those?
No, I don't own one of those. But just briefly wrapping up the comments about Americans' finances. I mean, we went into Iran to, quote unquote, destroy their missiles. We left after destroying 0 missiles. There's no destruction of threat in the country. They can, theoretically speaking, attack anyone at any time. They're not going to attack us. That's out of the question, but that's a conversation for another day. And now we're justifying staying there for a war because we need to destroy their missiles. At some point, the president and the people in his inner circle are going to say to themselves, we need to just cut our losses, get out of Iran, and do things that are going to help Americans again. Because people are suffering with high gas prices and an increase in cost of living that's not keeping up with salaries and inflation. And those issues are not going away as long as we're in a war with Iran. So for him to sit here and say to us, oh, just be patient, we can't worry about that. Like, Iran poses no imminent threat to this country. They were not going to bomb us in the first place. Like, take the L and walk away, dude, because the rest of us are suffering in this country pretty badly right now, especially people who are living paycheck to paycheck with families. That's not going to endear him to his supporters. I know the sycophants are probably going to let it be and say that it's okay and he's making the right decision or whatever. But at the end of the day, Sal, this is something that leaves a really bad taste in my mouth and probably your mouth as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that, like I said, I see the midterms being a bloodbath. And on election betting odds, the Republicans are, I think, 71% now, over 70% Democrats will take back Congress or the House. So so you know, but there's this. I know there's this. Is this it? Is this Trump Mobile?
Yeah, this is Trump Mobile. So the Trump family was offering like this very exclusive deal to get on the bandwagon of Trump Mobile, which is Let's be honest, Sal, it's being sold based on sentimental value. It's not being sold because Trump Mobile is some sort of great wireless company. I mean, as a matter of fact, it's probably more similar to a Boost Mobile than it is to a Verizon or an AT&T or a T-Mobile, right? So they're selling these really nice phones, but the phones haven't been shipped out yet. The Trump family has made something in the ballpark of $60 million. And there's no real information about what makes these phones ultra special or exclusive, and they haven't been shipped out yet. So it seems like this is just another pay-for-play scheme to try and be closer to the Trump brand without actually getting a product which is superior in any way.
That is, and of course, it cost $59 million. People paid $100 already. They're not getting anything. It's made in China. Brought to you by Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr.
And maybe Eric Adams is behind this too. Who knows?
Maybe Eric Adams is in it. I mean, I just saw that and go, if this doesn't, I mean, it's every 5 seconds that he gets himself, he steps into one, people here, two-party system is a complete failure. Rob 2326.
Agreed. I think Anthony DiMaggio said it once to me on the phone off the air. He said, the only thing worse than a monopoly is a duopoly. And he's totally right, because a duopoly has the two parties fighting against one another constantly. And a monopoly is just a single party occupancy and there's no fighting, right? So, I mean, it feels like there is only one party anyway, the uniparty, especially when considering that all the reporters that Trump ridicules in public are probably hanging out at Mar-a-Lago, sitting poolside, sipping margaritas as we're criticizing both parties objectively. But people are really getting sick of it. Matt O'Brien asks, are you voting Democratic? No, I'm not voting Democratic. I'm still a registered Republican. I still have Republican values and Republican beliefs, and my viewpoints sit on the right. But I am an acknowledgement that the two parties, to a certain degree, epitomize the same hypocrisies that they pretend to hate.
Yeah, my problem, again, the guy is hurting himself, like self-destruction, like talking about the finances. Guy, stick to what you just went. He's doing great in China, but he left saying, I don't care about your finances. They're going to play that clip over and over and over again.
And he campaigned on no foreign wars and not starting conflicts and lowering expenses. And he's not delivering. Releasing the Epstein files was kind of a lesser priority, but he's not delivering on the things that he campaigned on. And as such,
maybe Palm Beach Pete has that. I don't know. Palm Beach Pete, if you're out there, I've been wanting to. Yeah. I just want to ask him: are you in possession of the Epstein files? I mean, they keep saying that guy looks like. It's funny. He does look like him, but it's not him. People they're like, you are him. He's not. He's not him. But you're right. I mean, it's self-inflicted wounds. He should have said that thing is going to be run forever, because now he's solving these issues apparently with China. But you said you don't care about American finances, and the voters telling you they know how to revolt. They either come in droves to vote or they stay home, and that's how they're saying, yeah, that's what we think about you, since you really care about us. Just know that's how politics is. It's the way it works.
And it's hurting the Republican Party in totality as well, because every Republican who's associating themselves with Trump, either voluntarily or even involuntarily, just by virtue of associating with the Republican Party, now you're in bad standing with the general public because of negative brand association, because of what Trump said. So it all kind of radiates a lot deeper than just those comments that he made briefly outside the White House. It speaks to Republicans losing power more quickly, but he doesn't seem to care about that.
Of course not. I wouldn't think so. But before we leave, Inter Milan yesterday, we won. We beat Lazio in the Stadio Olimpico, which is in Rome. We beat them 2-0. Now it's a 10th Coppa Italia. So next year, on the New Jersey, we'll have the Italian Scudetto, and we'll have the Coccodoro, which is the symbol of winning the Coppa Italia. Hopefully we can wear the Silver Star, which is allegedly what represents winning 10 of those. It was a great game. Lautaro Martinez scored. We controlled the whole game. Inter's been the best team in Italy. Italy's not a good soccer team as national team goes, but as their teams in Italy go, Inter is one of the top 5 teams in the world. It's unfortunate it didn't go through in Champions League, but that was a great game, a great final. I'm ecstatic. Sunday, we celebrate the Scudetto. They're going to run around in Milan running up and down with the 2 trophies because they won this year. It's really been a good year as far as Inter Milan goes. Of course, last Friday night, the Chargers, we won a Lifetime Miami Chargers won our 3rd highlight championship. So sports is going okay. The Mets won yesterday. And
how about the baby Mets?
The baby Mets, AJ Ewing is the new prodigy with Wenj over there in right field. I think Soto might have got hurt. Alvarez got hurt, but everyone on his team always gets hurt. So time to get rid of these guys. So whoever gets hurt, you should be gone. But the Mets,
Alvarez.
Let's start going. And I think I'm going to go to the Marlins in the Met game. I haven't been there all year. I like the Marlins too. I'm watching them from afar, so we'll see. So that's the sports capper. Since we were talking a lot about the corruption and the scandals under the soccer mamu, you need to get a grip on yourself, on your I don't know, your staff. The people need to soccer mamu. This is a disaster, and you had a grand larceny occurring right underneath you, and you can't even do the right thing, which is terminate this guy, demote him, suspend him, and there should be criminal charges. That's all I'm going to say. It's gonna be a doozy. Jack, I don't know what you want to say because the weekend's here, so we're going to be out of here. So any final words?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Subway Series this weekend between the Yankees and the Mets, because the Yankees got off to a scorching hot start and have since sputtered, getting swept by the Brewers and then losing 2 out of 3 to the Orioles. They've lost 5 of their last 6. Meanwhile, the Mets seem like they've benefited from a dose of young talent, a real infusion of young talent, if you will, with AJ Ewing being called up and Carson Benz starting to swing the bat a little bit better. And, some of the other young guys in the rotation, Christian Scott, pitching really well. So, I mean, the baby Mets are starting to make their impact at the big league level. And it's going to be interesting watching these 2 teams duke it out at Citi Field, because it feels like it's more of an inflection point for the Mets because they're playing from behind, but it's equally as consequential for the Yankees, because if they go into Citi Field and lose 2 out of 3 or get swept, a lot of their fans are going to question if they're really going in the right direction, which I don't personally think that they are, especially given the injuries. So, yeah, it's going to be a really fun weekend getting to watch the Subway Series. We'll be following all the news, tracking it, having reaction on Monday morning. And, yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah. Guys, if you want, check out Jack on X and Instagram at J_Stern97. Check myself out at the Sal Greco on Instagram and X at the Sal Greco. And the show, you could watch it on Rumble, on YouTube. You could also watch on TikTok and Instagram at the Sal Greco Show. So, guys, I hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday, 11:05 a.m. And, of course, check out whatever's going to be news tidbits I post, because you never know what's going to occur. We'll be on all these stories. We'll be on everything, but we'll be back on Monday, 11:05. So until then, I hope everyone has a great weekend. Be well. Don't forget to go to church on Sunday. Let's go Mets. Congratulations, Inter Milan. We'll see you Monday morning, 11:05. So we're signing off from South Florida, a sunny South Florida today, which, as you know, is a sunny place for shady people.
What I'm asking New Yorkers for is to look back at all the things I've done as a deputy commissioner for operations, the assistant as assistant commissioner, and my time as a not only as a New Yorker but as a police officer. I get stuff done.
Listen, there was a book that came out that Jasmine Ray wrote, and in the Daily News today, it was stated that there was a sexual action that happened in Borough Hall. She reported in that book. And it wasn't. You're a dark, sick person, man. You know that? You're a dark, sick person. Your name was on the byline. And there's some of you that have been covering me. You guys could part. Let me do this. Y'all could depart. Some of you have been covering me for 3.5 years. Some of you are so sick and dark, and you're the leader of that. You're one of the most dark writers that I've ever seen in this city. And your personal sick vendetta and the sickness of how you think of over-sexualizing a black man, that in the book is stated that there was a sexual action in Borough Hall. That was never in the book. But that's typical of the sickness and the darkness of your sick mind. You're one of the sickest reporters I know. Go to the next question. You're a sick person.